Welcome back to Media 7, where I'm discussing media freedom in the Pacific States, or the lack thereof, with David Roby, Barbara Drever and Tim Pankhurst. Barbara, in our set-up video before, we noted your story in Samoa about organised crime and guns that was the subject of a successful broadcasting standards complaint from the Samoan government. What did you make of that decision?
Well, look, obviously I'm personally unhappy with the decision, but I totally stand by that story, and so does TVNZ. They've been very supportive in that. You know, at the end of the day, a BSA decision, win or lose, does not affect how I do my job. I'm going to keep doing it. It's not the first time I've upset a government. It won't be the last time. In fact, I'm working on a couple of investigations now that's not going to please the Samoan government, I guess. But, you know, I've just got to keep doing my job, and BSA decision, win or lose, just got to keep doing it.
I see Samoa had its first armed bank robbery last week as well.
Yes, and a number of people shot in the same village where we were filming, however.
Tim, what did you make of that decision? I mean, obviously the press isn't covered by the BSA, but...
No, the press is covered by the Press Council, and, you know, unfortunately I've been in Barbara's position with the council, and, yeah, I mean, you have to roll with those, but I think they got it wrong. I think it's hugely relevant that the complaint was brought by the government, and they were prepared to go to the extent of hiring very expensive lawyers here in Auckland to pursue and bully this case, and I assume their motive was to protect their tourism industry, their good name, but I didn't see them refuting the essence of the story in any telling way.
David, is there a sense in which governments do have the right to defend their interests and their image in this way? I mean, we saw the same thing with Michael Field, with the Fijian Attorney General, again successful.
Yes, and it's a bit of a worrying trend in the Pacific, although the only two examples that have happened. But I do want to say something about in Barbara's case, because I was actually at a Media Freedom conference in Samoa last year, where it wasn't that long after the controversy sort of blew up, and I remember Barbara being attacked by many Samoan journalists at this conference, and I actually spoke very strongly in her support. One of the worrying aspects I found about that whole episode is the way Barbara was singled out by a number of Samoan journalists who seemed to become propagandists overnight for the Samoan government and attack her. Essentially, it was a vendetta, and I wrote about this on my blog, Cafe Pacific. And I thought, like Tim, I thought the BSA had it wrong as well. Of course, there were areas that the program quite justifiably criticised, but I think the BSA essentially had the judgment wrong in the sense that this was a major propaganda exercise by the Samoan government. And the BSA ruling didn't take into account the broader picture and the context of the vendetta, where even threats were made against
So if it's so obvious to the
Barbara.
three of you, why did the BSA make the decision they did, do you think?
Oh, well, I mean, it's like any accountability issues involving media. Journalists have very differing opinions, and so do adjudication bodies on BSA or Press Council and so on can have varying judgments. But certainly, I think we're agreed that
you know, your point about tourism
decision.
as well is well noted. Even today, a well-known Samoan journalist had up on her Facebook page that she'd been attacked by the head of tourism for reporting on this armed bank robbery. In Samoa, and said, "This is terrible for tourism. What are you doing? How dare you do this story?" And you know, it's been going on for years. Let's face it. I mean, when I lived and worked in the Cooks, we used to get attacked for writing about dengue epidemics where people had died. I mean, and you know, we're telling the tourists not to come to the Cook Islands. But at the end of the day, you've just got to get over it and just do your job.
Well, we also know that in the video earlier, the Princess Ashika tragedy. You've reported on similar looming problems with the ferry in Tokelau, which I wonder whether that shows the importance of being able to freely and fairly report, because you may have averted another disaster there.
Well, not yet, because the Tokelau ferry is still going, unfortunately, and much to the distress
But
of
our
many
government,
of the
they
people
brought
who
it to the
live there.
attention of our government.
Yes, and they're well aware of it. They're well aware of that ferry, and in fact, you know, one of the reasons why they've stepped in and paid for the lease of a new Tongan ferry is to avert a similar disaster. I mean, that report, which none of the media were able to report on because they couldn't get a copy of it. I mean, we grabbed a leaked copy of it. It was very damning damning about the government's role in this. And this is why the media is so important, is because we can look at that, we can report on what's going on and let people know what's going on, and then it does avert a disaster with any luck.
Speaking of the government, where are they on these issues? Murray McCulley's certainly missing in action. I think it's very telling and very disturbing that no government spokesman, minister has stood up and challenged what is happening in Fiji and in some of these other areas. It's all very well to have a watching brief, as we're told they have, but it needs a bit more than that.
So what can your organisation do besides sit on the sidelines and tut-tut?
Look, that tut-tutting is really important. We need to keep raising the issues, particularly with our politicians. And taking it a further step from there, I think it's totally legitimate to be linking our foreign aid to good government. And I think we could be much more forceful in that area.
David, just finally, we're looking at a fairly unhappy story there in terms of press freedom. What is actually at stake? How much does it matter?
Oh, I think it's critical for the region. It's critical for certainly any the so-called roadmap back to democracy in Fiji. It's critical for that. The decree is critical for the rest of the region, because if Fiji gets away with such a draconian piece of legislation, there are all the politicians in many other countries that were just waiting for the opportunity to emulate that. And it'd be tragic if the Fiji Times goes under. The oldest paper in Fiji, founded in 1869, and along with its sister paper in Papua New Guinea, the Post Courier, both of those papers for many years have been champions of freedom of information throughout the region. And if the Fiji Times goes under, it'll be devastating, I think, for the whole region.
Well, that's a worrying note, but that does conclude this discussion, and we will keep a watching brief. We'll turn now to a local media departure. Sarah Daniels' Take Two looks at the setting of Sunrise.
Come on, Carly, come on.
Last week, the news was all bad for Sunrise. Sunrise was axed.
That's put me in a wonderful Friday mood. An even better Friday mood.
20 people would lose their jobs.
No, we're unemployed.
20-odd thousand fans would lose their favourite breakfast show.
Sie verpflichtet Feiglinge, verreiste Versager! Mein Führer, Sie ist ohne Ehren!
Over on One, it was business as usual. Sunrise was launched in 2007.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to be with you.
And I'm James Coleman.
The Coleman-Flynn combo didn't fly.
Stink balls.
In came Oliver Driver and his dog.
Right, welcome to Driver's Seat, which is very similar to the rest of the show, to be honest.
Sunrise covered the big stories.
You're live on the ground in Samoa. What's it like there?
Live from Napier, where shots rung out throughout the night. Everybody live from Melbourne, a city in mourning as news sinks in of the terrible toll the bushfires have taken over the weekend.
It was often surreal.
Good morning, my Sunrise friends. It's time for your happy little vlog.
And they even got Helen Clark to reveal where she scores in New York.
Look, New York's one of those cities where any time of day or night you can get anything you want.
The Sunrise formula pretty much mirrored the opposition. The goofy guy, the gal next door who's a foil to his dumb jokes.
I went to Mystery Creek with you.
And fine wine and cheese.
We had a great time there. And I went to the guy who got eaten by the tiger.
Yeah.
They were the family that played together.
I just think it's been an amazing journey.
It's been a journey, and I think it's been really cool to share that with the viewers right from the beginning as well.
Remember, you are waking up with friends here on Sunrise.
It's been an honour and a pleasure to be on the show.
You will, of course.
It was an honour and a pleasure and a privilege and a journey. They had it all, but they didn't have the viewers.
You were always going to be crap at the start.
We just didn't get any better, that was the problem.
Oh, we did.
We did.
It was a sad day for Sunrise and sadder for viewers who now just have this. And this. The Sunrise team were pros to the bitter end, and the future looks bright.
Norma from Aratia has just offered me a job coming to clean her windows.
Oh, you'd be tall enough.
Sarah Daniel there, and with that, our show. Thanks to our guests, David Roby, Barbara Drever and Tim Pankhurst. Thanks to you for watching, and thanks to everyone who voted Media 7 into 2 of these inaugural Freeview Awards. We're pleased and proud. We'll be back with Media 7 at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.